What is up, y'all? I am joined today by long time at this point client and somebody that I've known for an even longer time, Jordan August from August Performance Physical Therapy out in Cincinnati, Ohio. And Jordan and I go way back to my prior life, at my prior professional life where we were originally connected. And you've been working in the engaged movement ecosystem for probably like north of a year now.
Yeah, I think
Um,
so. I'm trying to remember when the first time we kind of connected, but
yeah,
yeah, it's been a while. I think we've had definitely some conversations along the way, but
yeah.
yes, it's been a while,
Well, awesome, man. Well, thank you for joining me. Um,
definitely.
Jordan was kind of starting out traditional outpatient orthopedics, was on the fence for a long time about starting his own thing. For those of you that are hesitant out there, Jordan, you're not the most hesitant person that I've ever talked to, but
But I'm
you
up
had
there.
a lot of hesitation. So talk to me a little bit about kind of your background, what kind of led you and I together, and then we can kind of take the convo from there, man.
Yeah, sure thing. So, I feel like I have kind of a little bit of a similar background to kind of a lot of kind of therapists. I grew up on the East Coast, Long Island, New York. Went to school, undergrad and grad school, out there. Graduated in 2015.
Yeah,
Just like everyone, just kind of wanted to, work more, performance wise, kind of sports outpatient. So kind of started there and, over the years had a few different, positions, and each one was a little bit different in their own way, in terms of kind of like setting wise. But I started kind of seeing just, similar trends, whether that be just, working long hours, what it entails in terms of a traditional insurance-based model, in terms of
yeah,
documentation, um, lack of, equipment and time being able to kind of spend with clients. And I knew ultimately that, I knew I could help people in a better way. I just didn't know what that was. So kind of leading up, my wife is a PT as well. And we had our first daughter in 2019, and she was working in the school system, kind of shifted around a little bit to home care and whatnot, just to kind of a little bit more flexible schedule to kind of match mine. And then, once 2021 hit, kind of after COVID, we had our
yeah,
second daughter, and we were kind of both in that position. I wasn't really totally set. My wife wanted to get back into the school system, and we were kind of both on the same page. We're like, hey, like looking for a change, looking for something different. So we bit the bullet with two young kids and moved to Cincinnati,
yeah,
from northern New Jersey. So I think for me, I just kind of kept telling myself that, new city, new change, new start. And I just kept telling myself that things were going to change, things were going to be better. Although some things were a little bit different, the same trends that I was kind of used to. It was just essentially kind of a change in area code.
yeah,
And I kind of realized pretty quick that it wasn't necessarily the job, it was more the system that I was in. And that
yeah.
kind of led me down the path of like, hey, I always had this knack that like wanted to kind of eventually kind of go out on my own. Like I said, I didn't really know what that looked like. And then I think we started to kind of have some conversations.
Yeah.
Um, and then, up until we kind of started working together.
What were some like I want to point out a couple things here. Not only did you start your business after you had two kids, which, I think a lot of people think that that is for some reason too late to start a business because of the inherent risk. You also started your business in somewhere where you were like kind of tapped into, but not rooted down like you would have been had you, set up in New Jersey. What were some of the initial like thoughts that you were having, hesitations that you were having, maybe stories that you were telling yourself that kind of kept you stuck in the outpatient realm? And I'm assuming that that's what you mean when you say stuck in the system. You mean like the traditional outpatient orthopedic insurance-based realm.
Yes, correct. And then, definitely like you had mentioned too, I think a big part of it too is that, I had two young kids. It was, a comfortable job. It was a new
Yeah,
city. And I just kind of one of those things where I kept telling myself of like, how am I gonna, work to the point where I'm getting clientele? Like I said, form some relationships, but that was really kind of close knit more with like, some of the providers and some of the patients in the close knit area.
Yeah.
But like, where to essentially kind of start from here, to make this, sustainable, obviously with a family, with a mortgage and all those kind of things, especially like I said,
Yeah.
in a new city. So, in back of my mind, I was always like, hey, let's do this. But then there was something always kind of holding me back. And I think it was more like the fear of like, what if I fail? What if this doesn't work? Is this not the right time? Should I have done it sooner? So there's a lot of these things were just kind of just, were there just kind of holding me back a little bit. And I think we've kind of, and you, I believe, saw some of those things, I think, early on. Which kind of led us to kind of have a few conversations. But I think, I would say if it wasn't for you reaching back out,
Yeah.
to me, because it was almost like a realization to me, when we started we got on the second call and you were kind of like, okay, so what's changed? Like, what's new? And like the thing that hit home to me was like nothing had really changed, right? It was almost like I wanted the same thing, but there was really no progress towards that.
Yeah.
So it was almost kind of like a self-realization that, hey, like if I wanted something that bad, that I have to, take a risk on myself.
It's funny, man, because I think that, every time a month goes by, a year goes by, a mentor that you're thinking about working with reaches out and you wait, it's almost kind of this reminder that like I'm stuck
Yes.
and I don't know what to do. And one of the things that I kind of have been asking people to lean into is, I think everybody wants certainty, everybody wants reassurance, but like the reality is, man, like if you want those things, you're already getting them. You're already getting them in your full-time job. You're getting certainty, you know where your patient's gonna or your paycheck's gonna come from.
Right.
You're getting reassurance in that this is the way that it's always gonna be. And so if you want that in entrepreneurship and somebody tells you that that's what you're gonna get, like that's just not the case because that is the entire reason why there's upside in entrepreneurship, right?
100%.
What was kind of the strategy that you implemented? I know we started working together and obviously you were still working full time. Talk to me a little bit because I think this is where a lot of people get stuck, right? You're a dad of two, your wife is working in the school system, right? So we understand the financial constraints around that, but she's
Right.
got the flexibility. She's on sync with the kid's school schedule. And you guys have a mortgage, right? It's not like you have these low expenses.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about what you did just to figure it out and make it work, as you transitioned into full time now. You've been full time for about 4 months,
Yeah.
as you've transitioned full time into your clinic.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, there's probably similar people that are out there, in the same position. And it's like one of those things where I knew it wasn't like, we start working together and you're just going to kind of quit your job and everything's going
Yeah,
to be sunshine and rainbows. But I think too, you just have to kind of take it day by day and just kind of know where you want to go. And even if it's kind of small steps along the way, I think you just have to put forth effort if it's something that you really want. Um, so I think, for me, it was that I was working, full time in an outpatient clinic. And then we worked kind of a little bit of an overlap. So I had two longer days, but on
yeah,
my two shorter days, I would kind of head to the gym and kind of see some clients and kind of started there. Just really didn't have much overhead, just had a table, just get out and really get to start meeting people, right? And I think that's kind
yeah,
of like the first step. And from there, kind of caseload started to build, and then I also worked kind of a shorter, like kind of transition schedule a little bit, so I can kind of work a little bit longer hours on some days. That freed up my Fridays. So again, I would see some people in the morning, and then again head back to the gym, and any other kind of out time that I had that I wasn't treating. I was trying to get out to the community, get out to meet people, have conversations, things like that. Um, and those things started kind of to work. I think the biggest thing for me is that it was hard, because I was working a full-time job, obviously in the gym, just trying to go there, see people, and then leave to really
yeah.
kind of create a good environment and awareness and exposure and things like that. So my goal was that if more people know that I'm here, seeing me
Set up.
obviously treat, set up out on the turf area,
Yep.
be able to even answer some questions, and I think the exposure that will only help it grow. So I think that's something I saw as well, is that as I kind of put more time into it, things were able to kind of grow it, and essentially to the point where I was able to kind of start to reduce my hours. And that's kind of how I kind of slowly transitioned. So I kind of went back and forth with, kind of totally quitting the outpatient job and potentially taking something like a skilled nursing and maybe
Sure.
kind of
PRN.
supplementing both, or kind of a PRN position. I did actually go on a few interviews, and I don't know, I just couldn't wrap my head kind of around that. Although it would have made sense to kind of, give me a better rate, to kind of give me a little bit more
Sure.
time. It's just something I couldn't do.
I get it, man. I don't think I would have done it had my like second to last rotation not
Yeah,
been in inpatient acute rehab or
yeah.
inpatient rehab. So I totally understand that. It's like when you come from the outpatient world and you go into there, you're like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, I'm
But
just so far in that it was
yeah,
just like I couldn't see myself doing it
yeah.
at this point. But
And that's totally fair, man. Like the
yeah,
thing that I want to highlight there is every single decision that you're going to make in this journey is going to have trade-offs, right? Like it does not matter. There is no situation where you're going to have your cake and eat it too. And what you kind of decided there was I'm going to forego like the flexibility and a little upside and earning potential because I just am going to feel more comfortable transitioning down. And the thing that I want to highlight is like there's no right or wrong transition strategy. There's just the transition strategy that works for you.
right,
And one of the things that I want people to know that are listening is like we are not going to when I coach people, when I mentor people, I am not going to say like you need to quit your job or else. It's like we need to figure out what is a scary enough leap for you, but also make sure that like financially you aren't stressed. We want to make sure that you are putting yourself in a position where maybe you feel stretched,
right.
but not stressed.
Yeah.
Did you guys kind of have that moment where it was like, okay, this is scary, but I see the trajectory of the business?
Correct. And I think that's even having conversations with my wife, and she was kind of fully, supportive with it and knew
Huge.
that obviously I think it was a big part of it as well. In terms of just kind of like laying the groundwork, and every month like looked like it was, there was progress being had and things like
Yeah.
that. So, and I think that, and also too, I think we had conversations about like, when are you gonna sit down and have that conversation with your
With
employer?
work.
Like
Yeah.
things are improving, and my wife was kind of like, well, you can't be working, all these long hours, but it got to the point where like, hey, like something has to be done, because I didn't
Yeah.
want to halt the progress. And then ended up, slowly transitioning hours. And then, my employer was kind of like, the conversation went like, better than I even expected. She was kind
Yeah.
of like, oh, hey, like I kind of knew that's what you were
Yeah.
wanting or planning to do anyway. So, and that's kind of how things kind of ended. And they even offered to kind of stay on, PRN if they need anything. So it was a pretty
That's
amicable. I
awesome.
still, like I said, everyone I worked with was great. Still have relationships with them, but it was more that I knew that I wanted more. I knew that I could help people in a different way.
Yeah.
And that kind of led me to kind of fully transitioning to full time.
The life that you want is often on the other side of really hard conversations you may not be willing to have.
Yeah.
Whether that is with your spouse, your significant other saying, "Hey, I'm not happy with work. I feel like I need to create, and pave my own destiny so I can be the husband I know I can be. I can be the father I know I can be. I can create the flexibility that I want." Whether that's a conversation with your employer of this is really scary because at the end of the day, like I always equate it to like it feels like a breakup.
Yep.
Like it feels like you're about to break up with somebody, and there's toxic situations that you can't wait to get out of. But then there's also situations where you're like, well, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
Like it's like I never really had a job that I hated as a physical therapist. I loved all my coworkers. I still, keep in touch with both of my bosses from time to time. Like it's not you said it well in the beginning. It wasn't the people, it was the system, right? So dude, I'm just so pumped for you and stoked on you making that exit. Tell me a little bit about the business now, man, because you have, you've grown and, in these first 4 months, you are into five-figure months, right? I think you've had a couple months north of 10K. You've had a month that was north of 12,500. You've implemented, everything that we have to offer from Engage Movement, from the PPGM. You have, your systems running with autopilot in the background.
Yeah.
Like, talk to me a little bit about the business and kind of just how everything is going. And it's just you, you're solo.
Yeah, it's just me for right now. I mean, I think that's kind of going back to where it's like even in kind of one of my first positions, my employer at the time kind of, left, kind of built a few clinics and then kind of exited because he didn't really want that clinical side. But then kind of I saw his day to day would just be driving
Yeah.
around from location to location. And early on, I was like, I don't want to be doing that necessarily, right? So it's like, is there another way to, to become a business owner with not solely rely on just growing and
Yep.
building more clinics and because those that comes with, some more headaches as well too. But
Second
yeah,
order problems there for sure that
yeah,
nobody thinks about.
exactly. So, yeah, I mean, a few years back, I had, even, leading up, started working with a few clients remotely, just kind of on the side. And
Yeah.
these are people who were also getting good results, weren't getting good results in person. And I was able to kind of, whether it be get them back to sport or get them back to fitness. So I knew there was always something there in the remote sector. I just didn't know how that obviously worked. And obviously, with your model and kind of what you teach, being able to kind of blend both a remote management system with in person, because like I still love treating clients in person, right? So it's not that
100%.
I wasn't looking to become a fully online coach or online PT, but I knew, both of those had some kind of relevance and components. So,
Yeah.
obviously with like some of the athletes and the active adults, it's obviously being able to meet them where they're at, but typically being able to compare combine an in-person plan of care with a remote management system has been great in terms of like being able to work with clients longer, but also getting them the results that they're looking for, right? Instead of
Yeah.
just a traditional model of like, oh, hey, or just rely on in-person sessions or just come in and then really have no, obviously no process in place to really work through those important times when they're looking to kind of reintegrate some fitness or reintegrate sport and things like that. So, it's the system in place has been great.
I know because I've known you for so long, I know you are a very process oriented, a very systems oriented, a very analytical guy. What I'm just kind of curious in your observations, what have you kind of seen client outcome wise as you've moved away from an in-person only model to the blended model? Like, I don't talk a lot about that with clients on interviews like this, but what have you kind of seen as far as your outcomes when you've added the prescriptive exercise program?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the lifespan of the client, I mean, if you're able to work with a client for a longer period of time and you're no matter what, your outcomes are going to be better, right? Because I
Yeah,
think
just
like the
accumulate more workload.
yeah, more workload. I mean, I think the traditional model is like so focused on pain, right? But
Yeah,
we understand that just because you get someone out of pain doesn't necessarily you're going to have the outcomes you're looking for the minute they jump back into the activity they want to get back to. So I think it's been a great way to be able to kind of implement a remote management system right off the bat. Obviously, more touch points, more accessibility, but also too is that when that, prescribed in-person plan of care, they obviously have range of motion, their pain is under control. They don't necessarily need you for that in-person component. It still allows you to work with them because a lot of the people as well are, they're athletes, they're active adults. They don't necessarily need their handheld, but
yeah,
they also too, they do need obviously a program to continue to work on workload, continue to build capacity to supplement their fitness or what else they're already doing. Again, to really get them the outcome they're looking for, then obviously reduce the chance that they re-injure and things like that. So I think that's been great to see where, being able to have both in person and remote, in that plan of care, but obviously as they transcend, later on when, in person is no longer needed, it's really just continuing to build upon what you already started.
I think we're very similar in that as I worked with athletes, what I really noticed, and I think I felt this and my clients felt this, and I think this is why the like we get clients better, faster train got
Right,
really popular was what really happened was like clients kind of got bored and they started falling off because now they're out of pain, right?
right,
And so what I noticed, and I think what you're highlighting is there becomes this portion in time in the rehab journey where clients no longer need my time, they no longer need my hands, they
right.
need my brain. They need my management process. They need my decision making skills. They need my critical thinking as it relates to them as an N of one and the exercise program, the process that they're going through, right? That I think is huge. And I just felt like there was such a big mismatch in making them come in person to do that. Like, and
Yeah,
that was ultimately, part of the reason for adding the blended option, adding the
yeah,
prescriptive exercise program.
yeah, for sure.
Talk to me a little bit about like what's life like now, man? Like what's like your day-to-day look like? How many hours per week are you working? What are you kind of doing as a dad? Like talk to me a little bit about that, dude.
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest thing, which transcending to like fully full time as the kids are getting out of school and daycare, and my wife's
Hmm.
off in the summer. I think this summer's been great. It's being able to spend more time with the kids,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And I think too, with like obviously the model, it's really not feeling that I totally need to chase my next client or find someone new. It's really just kind of focusing on the kind of the retention where again, obviously making your business better, but also kind of giving people the outcomes they're looking for. But yeah, I mean, just spending, family time, being home at the middle of the day. I mean, I think even now is it, school starts a little bit earlier for us
Yeah.
here in the Midwest, but just being able to like put my daughter on the bus. I mean, we had last week we had like a parent teacher meeting at their school. It was like from like 1 to 3 in the middle of the day. Like, had no
Yeah.
problem going to that. Just
Didn't
so
have to
things are
ask
just
her, didn't
didn't
have
have
to
to ask
ask
for
for PTO.
PTO
Yeah.
or anything like that. So it's
Yeah.
been great to be able to have more flexibility, more control over my schedule, and be able to kind of have that energy to kind of put back into the things that matter. So
I love it, dude. I think end of the day, man, like if we had a North Star, it is just like freedom and flexibility, right? It's like it's making decisions that continuously give people freedom and flexibility to control their own time, and to control their own schedule and to control their own earning potential. You'd mentioned the retention, do you know about what percentage of your revenue is kind of recurring revenue versus, in person? Do you know that off the top of your head, just out of
yeah,
curiosity?
so this month, it actually continues, even from the start of going in full time, the
Yeah,
recurring has continued to increase
love it, man.
each month, which is great. And then this month, it's looking like I'm going to hit 5K recurring.
Dude, that's my PT salary when I first
Yeah.
started, right? 60 grand a year in recurring revenue.
Yeah, which has been awesome.
And so I want you guys to think about the difference in business if you just have a traditional cash-based physical therapy clinic where it's live and die by the schedule, every month starts over at zero versus, what we're able to help our clients build, what Jordan has built, where every single month his baseline is 5K.
Yeah.
Like there's just $5,000 that he knows is coming in and how much pressure that kind of takes off, the business as it operates. I promise you guys, recurring revenue is the freaking cheat code, man.
It's been an absolute game changer for
Yeah,
sure.
I love it, dude. What's one thing I always ask is like, what's one thing that you kind of feel like has been unique, maybe about working together, working within Engage Movement? What's something that's kind of stood out to you as like this big, aha moment of, oh wow, that was like super valuable. That was really helpful in the business as I went to step into this new era.
I think the one thing that kind of attracted me, like I said, is definitely the model. And I
Yeah,
think too is that there's a lot of business coaches out there, specifically like in the PT space. And I've had some few colleagues on the East Coast and some here that are started that journey like before I did.
Yeah.
And it seems to be very similar in terms of, you start working with someone, it's just, okay, then you scale, then you bring on more employees,
Yeah.
then you open a second location, and it's kind of like this similar path, but I knew like, I don't necessarily want to go that
Align with
route.
that.
Exactly. And it
Yeah.
didn't really my values. So I think just, your system and just kind of putting that into place of what that looks like to, like I said, be able to kind of still create obviously a growing business, but have kind of time and energy to kind of put back into those things with less headaches and things like that. So I think that's definitely, the model and kind of how it fits has been, been great.
Yeah, the upside of what I call scaling with process rather than scaling with people, I think
Right.
is really a big differentiator. I don't know who has people convinced that scaling with staff for some reason is like an easier way to work yourself out of the business.
Yeah, because maybe that takes
Um,
away a little bit of the clinical stuff, but then it's like, someone leaves, someone's sick, so, just there's always, and that like, I think seeing that firsthand
yeah,
happen, in a job I had is just, really kind of solidified early on is that that's not what I was really looking for if I was able to take that
yeah.
jump. So it's kind of
And
looking
it's
back.
gonna crush your margins. I
Yeah.
mean, like, look, I've worked with solopreneurs. I've worked with, $500,000 clinics that have multiple PTs. And I have just time and time again seen our solopreneurs take home more revenue
Yeah.
than these 3, 4 PT clinics. It's wild to me because they have to have a bigger space, they have to have more overhead. Like it's not just the people.
Right.
They have to move sometimes when their leases are up because the rent has gone up too much at that space. Like, man, you want to talk about stress and headaches that I'm just not looking to deal with. That's
Yeah.
really it.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, well, Jordan, what is something that you would like to leave those listening with as a piece of advice? Maybe there's somebody out there that is on the fence,
Just like I was.
just like you were. Maybe there's somebody out there who is, questioning, can I do this in my city? Can I make this work with my family? Like, what's kind of that piece of advice that that you want to leave them with?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think like where I was kind of a little over a year ago, and like I said, just having a family already in a new city, just if it's something that you want, just start.
Yeah.
And I think there's one thing that you mentioned to me that always kind of stuck with me. It's like, what is the bigger risk, right? Like, betting on yourself or just being in the same situation year after year. So that's
Yeah.
something that always really kind of stuck with me. And I think the biggest thing is just start, right? Like you don't have to, certainly like myself, you don't have to just quit tomorrow, but just start each month, each week, each month, just kind of taking steps. Um, and then of course, towards your goal, and of course, hire a coach.
Yeah.
It's just, work with someone who's been where you want to go,
Yeah.
and just knowing that, and as well as just being able to get there faster.
Yeah, 100%. You definitely skip a lot of the difficult steps when you hire a coach. I mean, that's true in my business as well, right?
Yeah,
But you said something that I just really want to tie this up with. So many people, so many of you listening out there might be thinking that starting your own business is risky. And it is. But like for me, when I actually audited my financial future and where the risk lied, the risk was actually staying in the traditional system
right.
and knowing that I was going to cap out at 120 grand a year and that was going to be it and there was going to be no upside and knowing that that was going to take more time, more responsibility rather than just figuring out more efficient ways to make money still using my clinical skills.
Absolutely.
Jordan, man, I know I said this in the beginning, but dude, I'm so proud of what you've built, dude, and how you've just invested and bet on yourself, man. So I just want to say that. Where can people kind of find you, man? Where are you most active on social media if people want to reach out?
Yeah, sure. So mostly have Facebook page up and running as well, August Performance Physical Therapy, but
Awesome.
mostly active on Instagram as well.
Cool.
So August underscore Performance PT.
Awesome, man. Jordan, thank you so much. If any of you guys want to, connect with Jordan, feel free. If you want to connect with me, you know where to find me at Ray Gorman DPT on Instagram. Jordan, I appreciate your time, brother.
Thanks, Ray. Appreciate it.